Hey guys, happy new year. My name is Tito. I make videos on personal finance, saving and investing most of the time on my other channel. But now on this brand new channel, I talk about other things like today when I'll be reviewing my first movie of the year 2022, a movie that you guys apparently love to hate, Chief Daddy 2. After his demise, the Beecroft family is looking forward to getting their hands on their inheritance and late Chief Beecroft's assets. However, when his secret daughter Laila becomes the MD CEO of Chief Beecroft's company, she stops the family from achieving their goal. They then try to come up with a plan to get rid of Laila and restore their wealth and social dignity, or be forced to fend for themselves for the rest of their lives. Chief Daddy 2 Going for Broke is directed by me, Akimolayo, and it stars Falz, Beverly Naya, Beverly Osu, Mawuli Gavor, Linda Ejiofor, Broda Shaggy, Silva, Funke Akindele, and a host of other fantastic actors. Now, for those of you who are familiar with how I do my movie reviews, I won't be doing this review the same way or the normal way where I talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and the performances and whatnot. For this review, because Chief Daddy 2 was such a disruptive film, I feel there are more pressing issues to be addressed about this film. So I'll be talking about Chief Daddy 2 in terms of where they got it wrong and the many unanswered questions that came from this film, Chief Daddy 2. Now, starting with where they got it wrong in Chief Daddy 2, the story. The story was incredibly weak. They pick up in the movie with Rahama Sadau's character, Laila, one of Chief Daddy's illegitimate children. At the end of the first movie, she shows up looking like she's about to stir things up, and she announces she's the MD CEO, she's in control of the company, calls a family meeting and lets them know she's in control, and basically that means that they won't have access to Chief Daddy's fortune, at least not as much as they used to or as they'd like to. So the entire premise or story of the film is how the family can regain control of the company or just basically get money to sustain their extravagant lifestyles. That's pretty much the entire story. For a film that had so much potential, they could have gone in several other directions if they had hired creative writers and creative minds to come up with a better story. This story that they had was very weak. What makes it even more painful is that the first movie, Chief Daddy 1, was a poor film. It wasn't one of the best, so it wouldn't have taken too much to have developed or to have done a better film than the first movie. But apparently, somehow, they made a worse film than the first one. Number 2, so many things in this film were just implausible, as in they lacked logic, they didn't make sense. For one, Rahama Sadau's character Laila coming out of nowhere and becoming, the MD CEO of Chief Daddy's company, it didn't make sense. And you don't just become the MD CEO like that. There are board of directors, there are other stakeholders in the company that determine who becomes the MD CEO. Where were those guys? It would have been a contentious issue, to decide who becomes the MD CEO. And even if Chief Daddy put it in his will that Laila should become the MD CEO, why wasn't that mentioned in the first movie? There are so many loose ends with Laila's character and how she became MD CEO and just that whole, storyline. Still on Laila's character, right? When she gave Falz's character, Famzi, an entire floor for an entertainment division, like in the middle of the movie, that didn't make sense either. Especially given the kind of relationship that they wanted us to believe Laila had with the rest of the family. She was meant to be like public enemy number one. If she was public enemy number one, why would she have done something so generous and magnanimous to have given Falz or created an entire division for Famzi within the company? Speaking of Famzi, when Falz's character Famzi and Linda Ejiofor's character, I can't remember her name, when they both go to Dubai to try and jumpstart or kickstart Famzi's career, right, so that he can blow up and become this huge artist and save the family or make money for the family, that made no sense whatsoever. What was most mind-boggling about all that was them just spur of the moment deciding to go to Dubai without like a real solid contact and without a plan. And even if they did have a plan, how was that going to solve their pressing family issue at that time? Finally, the one that really did my head in, Funke Akindele and Kate Henshaw's character and the love triangle they had with Uzor Arukwe's character. That made no sense. those two women were sisters apparently, and their relationship was very rocky. Yeah, they weren't the type of people, not to mention them being sisters, who would get into a three-way relationship with a man, right, who is kind of tied to their family situation. But regardless of who the man was, they didn't seem like the kind of women who would indulge in that kind of three-person relationship, and then to have tried to exploit the relationship by making demands from the guy, monetizing it or making it transactional. That whole subplot seemed very unnecessary and was very confusing, not just for me, but for several other people, from what I saw on social media. So many things about Chief Daddy 2 made no sense whatsoever. And the painful part about all this is that with a little bit of, creative thinking, with a little bit of character development and, story development, maybe them dropping a few unnecessary characters as well so that they could focus on more important things and also fleshing out these storylines, these things could have actually been logical. They could have made sense. But for whatever reason, Ebony Life and the producers of this film and the writers felt there was no need to let any of these storylines or any of these scenarios and many of these characters make any sense whatsoever. Number 3, the jokes and the comedy in Chief Daddy 2 were pretty much non-existent, to be honest. I don't think I laughed once while watching this film. I may have smiled, I may have giggled, but I did not laugh out loud once. And this film is, I think, classified as a comedy like the first one, but it's just not that funny. And sadly, what they did with this film is, once again, they relied very heavily on Falz to deliver the movie. If you remember the first movie, Falz was pretty much the only really good thing about that first movie. He made that first movie bearable, and they knew this. So, he had a stronger and bigger role in Chief Daddy 2. But it doesn't matter how good a comedic actor is, right? If they are saddled with or, accompanied with a poor script, poor execution, poor characters, there's only so much that comedic actor can do to deliver the laughs and to deliver, the jokes in a film. If I ever do have a one-on-one with Falz by any chance, I'll ask him if he was compensated accordingly for being saddled with the responsibility of delivering or carrying that entire movie. It wasn't easy. And even with the other comedic actors in the film, Nedu, Chigul, Broda Shaggy, who, especially Broda Shaggy, who normally on a good day they're funny, right? It just, because of the poor writing and the dead jokes and everything, nothing hit home. There was no home run in terms of the jokes in this film. Hey guys, I'm interrupting this video very briefly to ask a quick favor of you. You see that like button just underneath the video? Please do me a favor and click it really quickly. Clicking on the like button lets YouTube know that you appreciate the video, and it helps the video perform better so that other people can see it as well. So please do me the awesome New Year favor of clicking that like button and subscribe to my new channel as well by clicking on the red subscribe button. Another thing that worked against this film, in my opinion, was the very flat chemistry between Mawuli's character and Beverly's character. If you remember, in the first movie, they hit it off, they start a relationship, right? And they let us know, I think in the trailer, that in this film, Chief Daddy 2, they're in a relationship and they're getting married. But for some reason, the relationship between those two characters felt very flat. In fact, it felt like a bit of a toxic relationship, and it felt like Beverly's character was only putting up with Mawuli's character because he was rich and famous, kind of like a gold-digging situation. That's how it looked, because the chemistry just wasn't there. It looked like they were just tolerating one another, and in fact, it didn't look like Mawuli's character particularly cared about Beverly's character. If you remember that scene where a woman kissed him in the restaurant in London, he didn't really seem too bothered that a woman was coming onto him so strongly, and he's a man that's engaged to be married. So the relationship between those two characters in that film felt very inauthentic, felt like it was, a relationship because of money. We didn't feel the love and the romance, and that is something that the audience would naturally have been looking forward to since it was, established in the first movie. And it was strange that, Mawuli and Beverly didn't have on-screen chemistry, because this wasn't their first time acting together. They were together in the first movie, and they were also, love interests in 2 Weeks in Lagos. I'm now sad that I've brought up that film because I wasn't a fan of that film either. Moving on. Now let's just talk about the several or a few of the numerous unanswered questions in this film, Chief Daddy 2. Lord have mercy. Number 1, how did Laila become the MD CEO of Chief Daddy's company? Number 2, why did everyone suddenly leave Lady K's birthday party just like that? When Famzi also went around pitching, what was the objective? What was the grand plan? How was that going to save his family? When Uzor Arukwe's character meets Kate Henshaw's character on the staircase, right, they don't exchange phone numbers or decide on a time or a date for the dates that they ultimately go on. How were the details of the date established? Also, if you notice, Uzor Arukwe was wearing the same clothes on the date as he was when he actually met Kate Henshaw's character. Then, when Uzor Arukwe goes on a date with Funke Akindele's character, why did she believe that he was in a relationship with Kate Henshaw's character when they only went out once? When Falz's character and Linda Ejiofor's character go all the way to Dubai, they went there without trying to set up a meeting first. They didn't even send an email or make a phone call. When the hotel staff brings a bill for damages to Falz's character and Linda Ejiofor's character, Falz's character Famzi says he's on tour in Dubai. Wasn't he there on business? Mawuli's character was this big-time English Premiership player, right? And he establishes a career-threatening injury. Shouldn't he have been a bit more worried or distraught by that injury and the effects it would have on his career? The talent show / competition that Famzi went for in Dubai, what was the purpose of that? What did it achieve? Finally, the $20 million that Laila gave Damilare and Famzi to start a sports and entertainment division, how was that going to solve the family's problems? I understand how that would have sorted out Damilare and Famzi, but how about all the other members of the family? So, with all the backlash and the public's perception and disapproval of Chief Daddy 2, you have to ask yourself, why was this film made and why did Netflix fund it? In one simple answer, money. If you were to give Netflix the chance to produce one really good film with $1 million or 5 mediocre or average films with the same $1 million, I believe Netflix will go with the 5 mediocre films, because the way the platform Netflix and many of these video on demand platforms work is that they want to keep you on the platform. They want to keep you watching on and on and on. So if Netflix produces just one really good movie with that $1 million, you're done with that movie, but after that, you're leaving. You're not sticking around. You're not staying on the platform. But with 5 average mediocre films that probably have some big stars in it, you know, if you watch one mediocre one, you won't leave the platform. You'll hang around and maybe try and see if the other 4 are better than that last one you watched. So I think that's their rationale. That's their way of thinking at Netflix. And like I said, the producers of movies, especially in Nollywood, they know this, and they know that Netflix doesn't particularly place a premium on the quality of stories. And so therefore, I think these studios, these producers produce mediocre films, subpar films. And it's not to say that Ebony Life Films doesn't know a good movie or how to produce a good movie. For goodness sake, this is the same studio that produced Oloture, one of the best films, Nollywood films of 2020, in my opinion. So Ebony Life Films, they know how to make a good film. They know what a good film looks like. They know how the public feels about Chief Daddy 1 and Chief Daddy 2. But like I said, they know that Netflix doesn't particularly care about quality as much as they do about quantity. And Ebony Life Films also knows that, you know, with the Nigerian audience, home and abroad, once you pack lots of stars in a movie and you put slapstick comedy in the film and you put a bit of romance in there, that's the formula to get people to watch, even when the story in the film doesn't really make that much sense. So in a nutshell, in conclusion, does it make sense? Is it fair? No. Do I understand the rationale behind it? Yes. Now, I just hope that with the feedback that Netflix and Ebony Life Films have gotten from this movie, Chief Daddy 2, that they will now challenge themselves to hire much better writers to produce better quality stories for, you know, Nollywood films, because I think the audience really does deserve better. There's no reason why we can't get better told stories and just better stories in general. Now, no offense to anyone watching, Netflix people here in Nigeria or abroad, or even Ebony Life Films. you guys are really good at what you do. You understand the market, but I think you're taking things for granted. But that aside, it's not a reflection on your HR, the people that worked on this project, Chief Daddy 2, or the people that were actually behind the scenes to create this, I was going to say masterpiece, but I can't pull that off sarcastically. But long story short, no offense, guys. I had to say that because I held off on making this review because I didn't want to step on toes. Muabudu is a fantastic woman. She's a fantastic businesswoman. I admire her. I just felt like these things needed to be said. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please be awesome and like it by clicking on the like button. I'd really appreciate it. And please do me the favor of subscribing to this brand new YouTube channel. For those of you who are familiar with me and what I do, I used to do these movie reviews, but on my other channel, which is now my personal finance channel. It's dedicated to personal finance. Now, if you're interested in that, you can check it out by clicking on the link in the description box below. But for this channel, what we'll be doing here is strictly the movie reviews and one or two other things which I'm still filming right now. So please, guys, once again, hit that red subscribe button. If you have any opinions about Chief Daddy 2, if you're looking forward to Chief Daddy 3, please let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been awesome. I will see you in the next video. Take care.